After touring bridge control rooms, interviewing crew members, and exploring every inch of dozens of ships, I've discovered some of the strangest, most unusual secrets about cruise ships that most passengers never notice. If you're new here, I'm Kat, and these aren't your typical cruise tips. These are the strange, weird, sometimes hilarious quirks that make these cruise ships such unique floating cities. Let's start with the first one. Have you ever noticed a large circle with an H in the middle somewhere on one of the top decks of a cruise ship? Well, it's not a helipad for scenic tours. It's actually an emergency medical evacuation area. So most large cruise ships have designated helicopter landing areas for medical emergencies when a passenger needs to be airlifted to a hospital. Here's what surprised me the most. I always expected that this is going to be the first method that they would use to get somebody off the ship in emergency. With that said, I've witnessed seven medical evacuations on our cruises in the last 2 years alone, and none of them were using a helicopter. So in 2 of those cases, they changed the whole itinerary and they would dock us at a port where we were not even supposed to go to, while the other ship that was supposed to go to that dock was waiting for us to offload the passenger. In one of these cases, we came back to port in the evening of the day before we were even supposed to return, so that we ended up just sleeping that night on a docked ship at the port like a floating hotel. So it's surprising that it's cheaper or more convenient for them to reroute a whole ship with thousands of passengers on it instead of using a helicopter, which every ship has a landing pad for. Now, if you know any more details about this, let me know in the comments. I'm truly curious of why they do it the way they do. Now, in all these cases, I am extremely thankful to see how cruise lines will go out of their way to help a person in a medical emergency. And it does make me feel a lot better about cruising. It also makes a huge point why we don't travel without travel insurance anymore. The number one reason we get travel insurance is for medical protection. But that's not what this video is about. So let's go on to number 2. If you've cruised enough, you probably noticed something strange in the elevator. They go straight from deck 12 to deck 14. Cruise lines actually skip deck 13 entirely because of superstition. And that's right, these massive, technologically advanced floating cities still cater to the old superstition that 13 is an unlucky number. The deck physically exists because, physics, but it's just labeled as deck 14. And what's interesting is that on MSC Cruise Line, because of Italian culture, 17 is considered extremely unlucky, so they skip deck 17. Now, why, you might ask? I looked it up. When written in Roman numerals, the number 17 is an anagram of vixi, which in Latin translates to I have lived, meaning you're already dead. So it gets really weird on MSC World America, where they skip both 13 and 17, trying to cater to all kinds of superstitions from around the world. And World Europa is the same way. So I find it hilarious that these modern engineering marvels still bow to traditional superstitions, but I guess no one wants to tempt fate in the middle of the ocean. The next fact actually surprised me, so I had to look it up. But have you noticed those strange circular discs placed on the mooring lines when cruise ships are docked? They look like giant CDs threaded onto the ropes, and those are rat guards. Yes, really, they're designed to prevent rats from climbing up the mooring lines and onto the ship. This practice actually dates back centuries to when trading ships would inadvertently transport rats from port to port, spreading disease. Modern cruise ships continue this practice, even though it's much less of a concern today. I mean, how often have you seen a rat running down the concrete pier as you're boarding the ship? I mean, I guess it can happen, but these simple disc barriers are a reminder of how seriously cruise lines take pest control. And once you know what they are, you'll spot them in every port. Did you know that your cabin number isn't just random? It's actually a clever system that tells you exactly where you are on the ship. So here's how it works. Even numbered cabins are usually on one side of the ship and odd numbered are on the other. And it used to be always the same side, but then some cruise lines started swapping the sides, making it more complicated. And this little trick can save you from wandering down the wrong hallway after a few umbrella drinks. And the first digit usually tells you what deck you're on. So if you have a cabin 9234, it's on deck 9. And then the last digits usually increase as you move from front of the ship to back. Do you want to know one of my favorite cruise secrets? Well, almost every ship has some hidden outdoor areas that most people never know about. I hear about it all this time. Cruising is so crowded, I can't get away from people. Well, these little hideaways are the perfect places where you can escape from the crowds. On many ships, there are somewhat secret decks at the very front of the ship that you can usually access through unmarked doors on the lower decks. And these areas aren't on any ship maps, so there are no signs pointing to them. On some ships, like example Royal Caribbean Oasis class, love that class ship, there's a quiet little deck area in the very back of the ship that maybe has 10 chairs on it total, and it's empty pretty much the whole cruise, even on sea days, because nobody knows about it. So the only way to get to it is by going up the stairs next to a rock climbing wall, and it's not on any deck plan. By the way, that's also a perfect spot to watch a sold-out water show, which we just had to do on our last cruise 2 months ago. And when you do find that little secret area, don't think you're now on an uninhabited island. Remember that cruise ships have incredibly extensive CCTV camera systems monitoring almost everything. We're not talking about few cameras here and there. Modern cruise ships have hundreds of cameras covering virtually every public area. The only places without cameras are private areas like bathrooms, spa changing rooms, and inside your cabin. On a bridge tour of a Royal Caribbean ship, I was shown the security center where are just walls of monitors displayed feeds from all over the ship. And it was impressive and slightly unnerving at the same time. These cameras, they have multiple purposes, from security to safety to helping resolve disputes or even tracking down lost items. If you leave your phone at a bar, there's a good chance security can review the footage to see what happened to it. So while you're enjoying that midnight buffet or dancing in a nightclub, remember you might be on cruise ship camera. Nothing to worry about if you're behaving yourself, but definitely something to keep in mind. Combined with all that video footage, cruise ships are now adding sophisticated facial recognition technology in ways you might not realize. So remember that photo they took of you at check-in? Well, it's not just for security, it's also feeding a facial recognition system that can track you throughout the cruise. We've been on ships where the ship photographers can snap you a picture and the system automatically identifies you and matches you up to the cabin number you're in. Scary stuff to me, honestly. I don't know, I might be old-fashioned. It kind of bothers me, but let me know in the comments, what do you think about all this? Does it bother you that they're tracking you throughout the ship, or do you think it's just it is what it is? So I really want to know. Moving on to the next weird thing is, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's something strange about the thermostat in your cruise cabin. You can turn it up or down, but there's usually no temperature displayed. And it's not an oversight, it's actually by design. So here's the truth, on most cruise ships, you don't actually control the specific temperature of your cabin. Those thermostats typically only let you adjust relatively warmer or cooler, not to a specific degree. And why is that? Well, because cruise ships use centralized heating and cooling systems that serve multiple cabins at once. So your thermostat is really just telling the system, send a bit more cool air my way. There's also a hilarious industry secret that I found out. Cruise lines avoid putting actual temperature readings because it would lead to too many complaints about inaccuracy. All thermostats have what engineers call a differential, plus or minus factor. So a setting of 70 degrees might actually be anywhere between 65 to 75 degrees. Here's a weird but incredibly useful fact that surprises first-time cruisers that seasoned cruisers do know about, and that's that cruise ship cabins are metal and completely magnetic. And that works because cruise ships are essentially a giant metal structure. So this might seem random, but it actually is a game changer for staying organized in those tiny cabins. Now, nowadays, I don't ever cruise without bringing magnetic hooks because they can turn walls into valuable storage spaces. We hang hats, lanyards, your cruise card, tomorrow's outfit, anything to keep your limited counter and closet space free. Here's a weird cruise ship physics lesson that can save you from potential embarrassment. Don't open your balcony door and cabin door at the same time unless you want to create a powerful wind tunnel. Cruise ships maintain different air pressures in different areas, and when you open both doors simultaneously, you create a direct path for that pressure to equalize, resulting in a sudden, powerful gust of wind through your cabin. And what happens? Well, papers fly, lightweight clothing might just take a flight, and that door is going to slam shut with a bang that your neighbors are definitely going to hear. This also means that if you leave your balcony door open and leave your cabin, not only your air conditioning is going to shut off, you're going to come back to a really warm room. The outside door is going to be pretty hard to open when you're trying to get back in. Do you have any other cruise facts that surprised you when you learned about them? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to read about them. And if you want to learn even more insider cruise knowledge, then check out my videos here on how to outsmart the cruise lines and on the cruise rip-offs of the things that you should never buy on your cruise. Thank you for watching.